This is Greg Pass with the Americans in Wartime Experience. Today's date is June the 5th, 2022, and I am in Reading, Pennsylvania. I am with Andrew Adair at World War II Air Show. World War II weekend.
Right.
Welcome. Thanks for coming today and having a chat with us.
You're welcome.
Can you give us your full name and tell us where you were born?
My name is Andrew Adair, born 1933,
And where were you born?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia. And do you have any other military veterans in your family?
Yes, my uncle was in the Second World War.
And what did he do you know?
Communications, I believe.
So, what drove you into military service?
I just come out of the high school and the Korean War was on, so I had no job at the time, so I decided to enter the Air Force.
And why did you choose the Air Force?
To be honest with you, I don't think the bullets will get me. It's combat, that is.
Yeah. So how old were you when you enlisted? Then?
17.
17. Wow. Did you finish high school?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. What about your parents? What do they think about that?
They were fine with it. Yeah.
So tell what MOS or occupational specialty did you have, and where did you go through training at?
Okay, Munitions Specialist. Got my training outside of Denver, Colorado.
And what exactly is it that a munitions specialist does?
They take care of all kinds of ammo, not guns, but bullets and loading bombs, taking care of bombs, and learning how to fuse them and what each bomb does. Different types of bombs that they drop from bombers.
Gotcha. So you remember how long that training was?
It was 3 months.
So once you're done with that training, where do you go to from there?
I went to Korea, where the Korean War was on at the time.
And the year, do you remember the month and the year?
January.
January of 51?
51. No.
52?
January 52.
1952. All right, so give us a little overview of what was going on in Korea at the time. What was the situation over there, the American involvement?
They needed bombers and fighters over Korea as Korean War had already started, and to bomb different targets over North Korea. And I was a munitions specialist. I had trained for, and I arrived in Okinawa in February 52. It was a 546th Ammunition Supply Squadron stationed outside of Kadena Air Base on Okinawa.
So how did you get to Okinawa? Was that commercial or military?
Troop transport, troop ship transport.
Do you have any recollections or memories from your trip across the sea?
Yeah, I was sick most of the time.
Really?
Yeah, seasick.
They hot bunk you guys? Did you have to share bunks? Like
Yeah,
shifts?
no. We all had our bunks, and but it was sort of rough. I had never been on a ship before.
So you're probably thinking at that time, I'm glad I joined the Air Force, not the Navy, right?
Right. Good thing I didn't. But coming back from Korea, I didn't get sick at all. I don't know why.
Because you knew you were coming home.
Yeah.
So, what was your first impression when you got on soil? What was the temperature like?
The temperature was about 80, and so bright. The sun was so bright. It was almost blinding. But at the same time, the sun was coming off of Carl roads, Carl parks, whatever, and because of the sun beat on the Carl, it made it twice as bright.
Mm-hmm. So where do you go? So you get there on ship, and then where do they move you from?
I got off ship, and then they transported me to 546th Ammunition Supply Squadron outside of Ishikawa village, and got on the base, and that's when the car on the sun was so bright you couldn't stand it almost. Yeah, we did, but we weren't used to it. That was.
So talk about why Okinawa was important for the war effort.
Well,
what was happening there?
Korea had very few bombers, but it was safer, and you could load more ammunition, bomb munitions on the B-29s from the depot that was safe. They didn't have anybody attacking us.
So tell us about your typical day there. What is it exactly you're doing?
Naturally, you woke up and then you went to chow or breakfast, and then they transport us from out 546 was right outside of Ishikawa, and they transport us to the munitions area, which was maybe 3 miles from the air base, Kadena Air Base. And there they showed us what kind of ammunition, what kind of bombs we'd be taking care of, and the orientation more so. And then 2 days later, we were working in the ammunition area. And, taking care of ammunition, you have to know what type of bombs they have and how to take care of them, and well, maintenance more so. So that we spent like 8 hours, or lunch. We had lunch, and then we came back to the base and had dinner. But in taking care of ammunition, you have to know how to fuse them. You have to know how to take them. Some ammunition or some bombs had. Most of them all had explosive on them, but different types of explosion. TNT was one stripe, 2 stripes was Comp B, and 3 stripes was Tritonol, all for different missions, or what explosives for hitting the target.
So are you wheeling the bombs out and then taking them to the aircraft and then putting them in the aircraft yourself?
We stacked at the Munitions 546th Supply Squadron. We took the bombs from on emergencies. We took the bombs to Kadena Air Base and fused them and set them on the racks. I should say just the opposite. They put them on the racks and then they fused them. And it depended on the different missions, the different type of bombs they would carry. These were like B-29 bombers that we loaded.
Tell us a little bit about, keeping in mind that somebody watching this video might not understand what a B-29 is. Can you talk about a little bit about the B-29, the capabilities of that aircraft?
A B-29 is a big bomber, not the biggest, but at that time it was the biggest bomber during the Korean War. naturally they're bigger now, B-52s. But we didn't take care of the bombers. The bombers were stationed on Kadena Air Base, and we just took the ammunition or the bombs to the planes when they called for a mission. And then the bombers took off from, they're big, and they took off from Kadena and bombed North Korea at the time, and then came back. Some came back wounded or shot up. Bad B-29s that were really shot up landed in Japan, and they were lightly shot up. They come back to base, Kadena Air Base, after each mission.
Let's talk a little bit about your living conditions. Are you living in a tent?
We live in Quonset huts, 10 to a Quonset hut, and just bunks and a footlocker. And we had the other. They had different type of Quonset huts. One was showering, one was sleeping, and one was for duty. If you're going in whatever job you were going to that day.
Quonset hut. So again,
A Quonset hut is shaped like half a cylinder, and they had windows and had doors, but they were pretty good. I liked it because I wasn't in combat, for one, and it was a new experience for me, a young airman.
air conditioning?
No air conditioning in those days.
Yeah. Wishful thinking, right?
Yeah.
What about the food? How was the food?
I found it pretty good, but most of the people didn't find it good. But I grew up in a different type of living at that time.
Family. How did you keep in touch with your family?
I wrote the family maybe once a month at least.
Did you find that the postal, you were able to get letters?
You know,
in time and manner?
yes, I found we got the mail real good because we weren't under combat conditions at the time. Now, Korea, their mail was sort of slow.
Yeah. Entertainment. What did you guys do on your downtime?
Weekends we had movies, and at a great big Quonset hut. And we also had a library that kept in the front part was a library. It was in the front part. The rear was stacked with ammunition for guns.
USO? Did you see any USO shows?
No, we didn't see any USO shows.
So did the North Koreans have a capability to strike where you guys were at?
No, they didn't have any bombers or any long-range bombers particularly. They didn't have that much of an Air Force. The Russians helped them out a little as fighters, but no, they had no bombers at all.
So how long were you over there?
I was over there for 2 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
is that considered a tour, or did you double?
Half of my 2 years was during the Korean War, and they ended about a year before I left. The war ended, and then my tour of duty was 2 years, and my last year was taking care of bombs and at that time, I was a checkpoint where the bombers came in, and the trucks came in, picked up the bombs, and then left at the checkpoint. We count the ammunition or bombs on the trucks, and as they left for Kadena for bombing missions. Now they had alerts during the Korean War, and everybody took care of loading the ammunition, and we were part of that. We got the ammunition to the bombers, but after the war, we just took care of the ammunition and the bombs.
Were you at the same location the entire 2 years?
Yes, 2 years I stayed at the same location. 546th Ammunition Supply Squadron.
When you think about your time during the war, what memories stand out in your mind? Whether they're funny or
yeah. Well, one experience I had, I was on night shift at close to a year, and at the checkpoint, and then if they had alerts, everybody was involved. But mostly my time off spent was on the beach, Ishikawa Beach, and they had a nice beach, fenced off for military personnel, and they had a big Quonset hut. Well, the big Quonset hut had recreation, pool tables, and ping pong, and they had a bar, a full bar, and the army took care of the bar. So when I went back from the beach for refreshments, I was served by an army guy, and which was nice because you had all you can drink, but you didn't dare drink too much because naturally you'd be demoted, I guess. But my experience on the beach was I was out there. I liked swimming, and I was out there all by myself because I was on night shift. Everybody else was working on munitions, and then I was up about 3 months, and I'm swimming out in the Ishikawa Bay, and all of a sudden, in back of me, I seen a spear, and coming up, and then a helmet and goggles. I thought it was a holdout from the Second World War, because at that time there's a few holdouts from the Second World War. I thought it was a Japanese kamikaze. So I stayed clear of him, and he popped out of the water and he waved at me, "Ohayo gozaimasu." And boy, was I relieved. And I swam back to shore and realized, wow. But
spearfisher?
Yeah, he was a spearfisher. Yeah, and crabs and whatnot.
What was it that you said that he said? What was
Ohayo gozaimasu.
What does that mean?
Hello, how are you?
Gotcha.
But it was an experience I'll never forget.
Let's talk about your homecoming. When did you find out that you were going home? And
after my tour was done, we were shipped back, and we took a troop transport, and Army and Air Force, and the troop. Well, naturally, it went along real smooth because I was coming home. Yeah, and then we arrived in Frisco, and then they transferred us out to Lockbourne Air Force Base in Columbus, Ohio, about 5 miles out. And I had never seen a B-47 is a Stratojet at that time, brand new, and a swept wing, and they could carry good, mostly atomic bombs. But our base was reconnaissance, so we had to load. One of our jobs was to load the bomb, 100-pounders, and they were painted blue, and they were for recon, and they dropped the bombs so many feet out of the plane, and the photo flash would light up in the whole area, and the bombers were, like I said, reconnaissance. They took pictures of different targets in different cities, and for my last 2 years, I loaded 100-pounders photo flash bombs. They didn't have, once in a while, they had missions that didn't require the bomb photo flash, but most of the time, because of nighttime bombing or targets, we loaded 100-pound photo flash bombs, and our ammunition supply was right off the base, right next to the base, I should say, so that we just rolled around the airfield, and then whenever they had a mission, we'd load the ammunition, the bombs. That I found it very interesting. At the same time, I was counting the days when I left.
So when you saw your mom and dad for the first time, how did that go?
Oh, that was when I came back from Korea. I've seen them. That went along real well. And then fortunately I was stationed at outside of Columbus from Philadelphia.
We're at World War II weekend right now. There's a lot of young kids walking around, like teenage kids, and you have some military stuff on your clothes. If a young man or woman came up to you and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about joining the Air Force,"
I'd tell them.
What would you tell them how to be successful in the military?
Before you enter, make sure you have a good education, and then nowadays it helps greatly. There's different fields in the Air Force. Not only munitions, there's navigation, there's all kinds of technical, especially aircraft in A&E, aircraft and engine, and make sure you brush up on it, and I think you'll have a pleasant experience.
So obviously we're videotaping this right now, and you're going to receive a copy of your video in a month or two. And we're going to give you information on how you can send your video to the Library of Congress Veterans History Project, where theoretically it'll be on record for hundreds of years. If one of your great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren found the video, what would you want them to know about your service to your country?
I enjoyed it, my service in the Air Force, and very few do, but it's a great experience, and I suggest highly enlisting in the United States Air Force.
Is there anything else you'd like to document about your service?
Not really.
Well, on behalf of the Americans in Wartime Experience, I thank you for spending time with us today, but more importantly, thank you for your service to our country. It's a pleasure to meet you.
You're welcome.